माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जयो गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदनन्दन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तेरा बनचारी। यमुना तेरा बनचारी। जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तेरा बनचारी। यमुना तेरा बनचारी। बनचारी। जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे। Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Shri Radhe. Jayo Jagannatha, Jagannatha, Baladeva, Jayo Subhadra. Jayo Gauranitai, 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 Jayo Gauranitai. Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotara Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudev Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam tato jayamudhirayet nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatiruttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you for today's discussion of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. We are reading from Canto 7, Chapter 1, titled as The Supreme Lord is Equal to Everyone. Is that verse 7 written on the board? 7. Thank you. So we'll read from verse 7. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va. Prabhuji. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan asa ullasa eva va. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan harsha ullasa eva va. Mataji. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha tesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va. Sattvam rajastama iti prakriternatmano gunaha natesham yugapadrajan hrasa ullasa eva va. Word to word. Sattvam, the mode of goodness. Rajaha, the mode of passion. Tamaha, the mode of ignorance. Iti, thus, prakritehe, of material nature. Na, not. Atmanaha, of the spirit soul. Gunaha, qualities. Na, not. tesham, of them, yugapat, simultaneously, rajan, O king, hrasaha, diminution, ullasaha, prominence, eva, certainly, va, or. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Parikshit, King Parikshit, the material qualities Sattva Guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna all belong to the material world and do not even touch the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These three gunas cannot act by increasing or decreasing simultaneously. Purport. The original position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of equality. There is no question of His being influenced by Sattva Guna, Rajoguna or Tamoguna, for these material qualities cannot touch the Supreme Lord. The Lord is therefore called the Supreme Ishvara, Ishvara Paramah Krishna. He is the Supreme Controller. He controls the material qualities. Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Material nature Prakriti works under His order. How then can He be under the qualities of Prakriti? Krishna is never influenced by the material qualities. Therefore, there is no question of partiality in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishna Vamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yontah pravishya mama vacham imam prasuktam sanjevayathyakhila shaktidhara swadhamna anyamscha hastacharana shravanatvagadin प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं यं प्रव्रजन्तं मनुपेतमनुपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायन विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदु स्थं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinatarjam. I take blessings from Her Grace Narayani Mataji, who is adorning this assembly with Her Grace here, and we pay our obeisances to her and take her permission before I speak. Thank you, Mataji. So this chapter, the Supreme Lord is equal to everyone, is quite an interesting chapter. Because this verse, nowhere in the verse it is spoken about equality of the Lord. But Prabhupada's first line of the purport, it says, the original position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of equality. Why does Prabhupada start like this? Did anyone observe? Why does Prabhupada start about equality of the Lord? God, the original position of the Lord is of equality. And the chapter also is titled as that. This is because the previous canto ended where Lord Vishnu came and killed the enemies of Indra. In this case, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. He kills a lot of enemies of Indra and establishes the demigods or the devatas back into their original position in the heavenly kingdom. For an onlooker, for an outsider, it may think, oh, the Lord is partial towards the demons or the demoniac mentality, living entities, although they're all, in one sense, emanating from the same Supreme Lord. So why is the Lord partial to some? He seemed to be partial to some and impartial to others, or partial to some and not partial to others. And this is the exact question Parikshit Maharaj has inquired from Shukadeva Goswami in verse number 4 and 5. And then Shukadeva Goswami is explaining this. And this is very important for us to understand, because this is the canto where 7th canto represents the arms of the Lord. And usually both the arms are equal. You see, the left and right. So the Lord is always equal for everyone. How He is equal, this is for us to understand. Now, time and again, we have to understand Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. It is Akhila Shruti Saram Ekam. The entire Vedic cream, the cream of Vedic knowledge means if you churn the Vedas and the cream, if you take out the cream from the milk, that cream of the Vedas is Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. It is glorified in the first canto, Yasvanubhavam Akhila Shruti Saram Ekam Adhyatma Deepam Atititir-shatam Tamondham Samsarinam Karunayaha Purana Guhyam Tam Vyasa Sunum Upayami Gurum Muninam. This Bhagavatam is Akhila Shruti Saram Ekam. The entire Vedic knowledge, the Sara means the essence of the Vedic knowledge is one, and that is Bhagavatam. And what is the purpose of this Bhagavatam? Atititir-satam tamondham, tama andham. Tamas means darkness. It's quite interesting, these words. Tamas is darkness. I was speaking to a few of the devotees from, Lithuania. Lithuania is Eastern European, the Baltic region. Lithuania, Latvia, just around Finland. When I asked them, what do they call for dark? They use the word tamaso. You see, and when I ask them, what do you use, the words used for brightness, they say shveto. Very similar to Sanskrit language. Usually shvetaha, tamaha is darkness. Tama andham means unending darkness. Actually, if you really think about it, this material world we live in is a very dark place. Think for a while. You can, if you go around regional Victoria, on a no moon day, you can actually see the stars out there, the starlit sky. You'll see a lot of stars, because if the moon's quite prominent, you won't see the stars. Especially when you go to our farm, go on a no moon day, you will see the beautiful sky that's lit with stars. But imagine there were no stars, there was no sun, there was no moon, and there was no fire, no electricity. This is a pretty dark place, actually. It's pretty dark. You can experience it by just closing your eyes and ask any blind person who is blind by birth, and life is pretty dark in here. Therefore, this material world is referred to as dark place, both literally and spiritually as well, because Those who have not awakened to their original position that they are not this body, they are also in darkness. And getting awakened to this position is very difficult in this material world. We will see why this is very much linked to this verse, and why Prabhupada is bringing out the position of the Supreme Lord as being impartial. And in this verse, it says, Atiti tirshatam tamondham samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam. What is samsara? Samsara means world. Actually, there are several meanings of samsara. Samsara means, what is creation? What is janana? Birth. What is marana? Death. And the life between birth and death is called samsara. You see, the life between birth and death is samsara. But what is that between birth and death? What is happening between birth and death? Repeated birth and deaths. That is samsara. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Repeated taking birth, dying, taking birth, dying. This is samsara. This is what is called as maintenance. We think maintenance life means life between womb and tomb. No, life means birth and death, continuous birth and death. Because in every moment the body is changing. So there is constant death happening. In fact, even when a jiva is taking birth, he has to die 4 or 5 times. You see, when he drops, Chandogya Upanishad says, he drops from the raindrops and then he enters the grain. There is one death of the jiva. He enters the grain, there is one birth. And then the grain is slaughtered, there is death. The grain is eaten, the grain is boiled, it's dying again. Then he's partaken, he's converted into retas or semen of a father, he's born again, death again. He comes out of the father, enters the woman's womb, he's dying again, and a new life begins. Again he enters out of the womb, there's a new life. Therefore we celebrate Janma Samskaram, where he's born again. And again we give him Upaнаyanam, he's born again, dying again, birth again. You see, birth again, death again. See, there's a beautiful video from Bhaktivedanta Institute. Birth again and death again. This is samsara. So somebody who wants to get out of this chakra, from this rat race of repeated birth and death, or this dark place, Vyasadeva, out of his practical experience, because Shastra means it's experiential literature. It is not just bookish literature. It is just not quoting verses and then trying to interpret it linguistically. That is not scripture. Scripture does not mean that. Scriptural means it's experiential evidence that Vyasa sunum upayami gurum muninam. Sunum means son. It's an interesting word, you see. Sunum. Sunum. If you had S-U-N, the people from the Scottish people could have pronounced it soon, you see, sunum, and then that became son. Vyasa sunum upayami gurum muninam. So Vyasadeva, out of his experience, related this to his son. Who is his son? Shukadeva Goswami. So Shukadeva or Shukacharya, to him, he is explaining this assembled literature of his experiences. And this Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, I'm just saying this because we have to understand where is Bhāgavatam coming from in the first place. Why are we even reading these verses? Because this line, Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti, if you Google this in Vedabase, you will find this Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti, this line at least umpteen number of times. Many places Vyasadeva is explained. So these are all written by Vyasadeva. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, all the Puranas, Itihasas, Vedas, they're all compiled by one author, Veda Vyasa. And he has used this Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti to explain these 3 modes. So it's very interesting how Bhagavatam is very finely delineating the topics of Adhyatma Chintan, of spiritual seeking, and so many topics are discussed here. And especially this topic of the 3 modes is very exclusive to the Vedic tradition. You will not find the discussion of the 3 modes of material nature or the gunas in practically any tradition around the world. They may talk about goodness, but not about the 3 modes, of how there are 3 modes or 3 energies of the Lord. And Bhagavatam, if you observe, is taking another approach. What do our scriptures take? What is the approach they take? How are these topics even discussed? Is it didactic? Didactic in nature. Didactic means, is it always professed? Somebody is just giving sermons after sermons? Yeah, it is question and answers, isn't it? It's inquiry. And if you see, all of our scriptures are inquiry. Even the Vedas, even the Upanishads are inquiry. If you see, even the Upanishads are all question and answers. So there's a lesson for us to learn. How do I even learn this? So even before we go into the verse, what is it for me to learn from this verse? How do I learn this topic? Or how do I learn this principle that Vyasadeva is trying to tell us? Or in this case, Shukadeva is trying to explain it to whom? To Parikshit Maharaj. Or this is a samvad happening between Vidura and Maitreya. Or this is a samvad happening between Suta Goswami and... Suta Goswami and... Sorry? Shaunaka Rishi, yes, correct. Shaunaka Rishi and Shruta Goswami, or Shaunaka Rishi and the sages of Naimisharanya. So there are so many discussions and hearing happening. So we see there are always such discussions between devotees. And devotees discuss based on scriptural topics about Krishna, about the activities of Krishna. So a practical lesson we can learn from this particular instance of how Bhagavatam presents these subtle topics is there should always be queries, question and answers. There should always be mutual discussions between devotees. It does not mean if somebody asks a question that he's a neophyte. And it also does not mean if somebody answers the question, he's very advanced. So this is the mood of the devotees, that somebody inquires to churn the topic more, and somebody answers to also churn the topic more. So this is the beautiful question and answer going on between two exalted personalities that we understand. And the first thing Shukadeva Goswami does is glorify the question. And we saw even in the first canto, second chapter, Munayah sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam yat kritah Krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidati. Shaunaka Rishi glorified Suta Goswami's questions, or the sages of Naimisharanya's questions. Munayah sadhu prishtoham. The sages have asked me this question. Bhavadbhir lokam. The question itself is purifying for lokamangalam. It is auspicious to the world. So how amazing is it? You ask a question and that question itself is glorifying. Is it not? Just think about it. What did you have for breakfast? That's a question we ask. That's not glorifying to the world, you see. Or what did you cook for Krishna? That is more glorifying. What did Krishna have for breakfast? See the perspective. What did you have for breakfast? I had sandwich and fruits, tropical fruits for breakfast. Okay. But if you ask a question, what did Krishna have for breakfast? That is purifying to the world. That is lokamangalam. Munayah sadhu purushtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam yat kritah Krishna samprashno. Anything that is related to Krishna, that becomes lokamangalam. Why? We will actually see. That is the crux of this verse. Yenatma suprasidati. By asking about Krishna, it is not that we are programming the devotees to always think about Krishna. If you don't think about Krishna, you will go to the hellish planets. No, although that's a fact, but we are not conditioning the devotees like that. But there is something deeper to understand why we have to talk about Krishna. Yenatma suprasidati. It is very pleasing to the original constitutional position of a jiva, or jiva as it is, or his position as a spirit soul. Because hearing about Krishna is pleasing to the heart and soul. How do we know that? Kapila Muni's instruction to Devahuti. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kathaha tajoshanadashvapavarga vartmashu vartmani shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishyati. These topics of Krishna have to be heard in the assembly of the devotees. Satam prasangan mamavirya samvido bhavanta hrit karna rasayanaha kataha. These stories have to be heard by hrit and karna, heart and the ear. If we hear these katha, if we pour the katha of Krishna through the ears, then tajoshanad, what will happen? Tajoshanad ashva, very quickly. Tajoshanad ashva apavarga vartmani. Pavarga, you know, right? Pavarga. What is pavarga? Apavarga and pavarga. You know the word pavarga? Anybody? Huh? Yeah, pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. That is pavarga. Actually, pa, pa, bha, bha, ma. This is the, if you study the Indian languages, you have is Vyanjana. Yeah, it is called as Vyanjan. The vowels and consonants. These are the consonants part. Vowels is A, E, I, O, U, or in Indian languages you have A, E, E. They are the vowels, and consonants are Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Na, Ka, Cha, Ta, Ta, Pa, and like that. So among that, Pa, Pa, Ba, Bha, Ma is called Pa Varga. And Pa, Pa, they all indicate struggle in the material life. That is why it is called as Pa Varga. Literally, it means Pa. Pa means parishrama, means he's working hard. Pa means pena. He's struggling hard and there is he's salivating because he's working so hard that he's practically salivating. Just when we sleep and we sometimes salivate in the sleep. It's called Pavarga. Apavarga means the reverse of Pavarga, that is going beyond the material existence. Apavarga Vartmani, and then what happens? Shraddha, Ratir, Bhaktir. All this Anukramishati, they will manifest in the heart. This is the beauty of hearing about Krishna. And that is what Bhagavatam, delineates all of these topics. And right now, we are trying to do this. Satam means what? Associating and hearing about Krishna amongst the devotees. And who is the Satam here whom we are hearing from? We are hearing this in the association of Srila Prabhupada, in the glorious association of Prabhupada's disciples. They come here to give us their association. And we are in that assembly when Prabhupada is trying to hear the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So Prabhupada is hearing and he's writing his realization. And we are in that assembly hearing it from Prabhupada. See, it's a beautiful assembly, and Prabhupada has created a location also for us to hear. So in this, we try to now understand what is the understanding of this verse 7. Before we go, we'll also have to understand the Q&A that is done in today's material world. Because I want to have a contrast. There is Q&A. You know Q&A? That is interviews. How many of you have watched interviews in the TV? How many of you have watched? We watch interviews. Especially in today's world, interviews of prominent personalities are very famous. The likes of prominent personalities like industrialists, the rich and the famous, and they interview such people. I recently was forwarded a video, and it was an interview about a very big IT magnate. They were interviewing him. What time did you wake up? What do you have for breakfast? Do you exercise or not? And then, do you go for a walk? And what is your favorite breakfast? And he was going on and on and on and on. And and there were millions of views of this interview. And then there will be interviews of others, people like scientists. There will be interviews of people who are fit for nothing in one sense. In Australia, there's a program called Morning Breakfast. So they'll have interviews. Most of these contemporary interviews that we see today are pretty useless in the spiritual realm. Why? Because this is very important for us to understand. Take a step back. When you see or hear the interview of a big industrial magnate or industry magnate, what can he tell us? What do you have for breakfast? Typical. Meat. You see? They'll have meat or something rubbish. Hopefully, if he's a vegan, he will not. But again, vegan is another form of atheism, you see. They don't want to worship the Lord, so therefore they go vegan. Veganism is good, but they're not completely good. But we appreciate that they are not eating meat at least. Or he will talk about his wondrous activities of how he runs his magnanimous big industries, So when someone hears such interviews, what will happen? So what is the ultimate outcome of such interviews? If somebody hears him for 1 hour of such a person, what will happen to that person? Imagine a person waking up in the morning and hearing an interview of the most richest person on this planet. And he is being interviewed for 1 hour. And that 1 hour he would be charging for that also. It's not a free interview he would give. Because time is money for him. And he wakes up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. What is the effect of such interviews? What happens to a person who hears such interviews? Correct. So he will be filled with desires. What if suppose I also become like him one day? You see? What if suppose I also make millions like him one day? So the effect of contemporary interviews is unlimited desires, first thing. Second thing, induce passion. I will also wake up at 2 a.m. and start working. Unfortunately, I was preparing for a lecture on my laptop that my office gives. I already started having emails. I was thinking, people started working at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I quit. I just closed my email application and said, let me focus on my lecture now. People have started, because they knew I was online, they started pinging me. Can you start working? Can you start working? And the first thing they do in the morning, what do? People outside, to charge them. What is the first thing they do after they get up? Yes, they want to have their intoxicant, coffee, yeah? Chai. The big intoxicant that the whole Bharata Bhumi is glued to, as an addiction. Even the so-called Swamijis also are addicted to it nowadays. You go to Vrindavan, they drink tea only. So I don't know why, but Prabhupada has saved us to grab us out of this bad, dirty habit of having tea and coffee. Without coffee, they can't run. You see, the materialists cannot run, so they have to have the first glass, and then they'll be, yes, now I'm ready, you see. And then after 2 hours, they are down again. Then they have to have another one, you see. And they'll have different names for it also. Cappuccino, latte. In Hindi, latte means kicks, you see. So without latte, they can't get up. So material world has different type of latte, means kicks, for us. And one of the kicks is that coffee that people drink. So material world, when you hear such interviews, it is filled. Hare Krishna, you can't go inside, Prabhuji. You can come out, yeah. So when you hear such discourses, when you hear such interviews, we are filled with desires and we are filled with passion. And when we are filled with passion, what do? We go and do more activities, you see. That is why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that do not start anything. Do not, what is that? What is the Sanskrit term? Sorry, I forget the verse. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one who is willing to do a lot of activities. You see, material people are always busy at all times. I want to do that. I want to do this. Let me do that. They're busy, very busy, very busy. I'm very busy, you see. So a busy life means who are running around too much. And that is what is called as mode of passion. They're filled with passion. So therefore, this is what the difference between contemporary interview watching and the interviews that we are seeing now, right now. There's an interview between Shukadeva Goswami and an interview between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Another downside is when we watch people who are filled with tamasic tendencies, we naturally go into mode of ignorance. You see, what will happen when you hear such personalities? Naturally, they will, same interview. I'll tell you, same interview. The big conglomerate, they will say, "In the night, what do you do?" Then they will say, "I drink this poison, that poison," and naturally, it goes into mode of ignorance. And they're also instilling jivas which those desires to how to get influence with tamas. So this is how we can compare. But when you hear interviews like this, what will happen? It actually gives Hrit Karna Rasayanaha Kataha. It gives so much pleasure to the heart, it purifies our existence. And how it purifies, it is only up to experience. And that is what today's discussion is about. Sorry for the long spill, but it was important for us to set the context. In here, Sattvam Rajastama iti Prakriter Natmano Gunaha. Shukadeva Goswami starts by listing these 3 gunas. Now, why are these 3 gunas very important? Guna in Sanskrit means quality. Guna means quality or characteristic, you see. So why are these 3 qualities important for us to understand? Why do they become very important? And why is Vedavyasa listing them many times in the scriptures? Because this material world is created with these 3 gunas. Imagine you have a red, blue and a green bucket and they're filled with red water, green water and blue water. This whole creation, everything that you see here, which includes matter, our senses, our sensory perceptions, our thoughts, our intellect, practically everything in this material world, including the thought that we have, including the intelligence that we use, everything is colored with these 3 modes or combination of these 3 modes. Nothing is free of these 3 colors. Practically everything. We saw in the 2nd canto and in the beginning of the 3rd canto, Lord Brahmaji explaining this to Narada Muni of how this creation happens. If you all know, how does creation, what is the raw material for creation? What is the raw material for creation? Mula Prakriti, which is a subtle material. Imagine everything is destroyed in this material world, the whole universe is. The subtle form of atoms, you see, that is called as unmanifest Prakriti, or that which you can't practically see or perceive with your physical senses. That is the raw material. And from there, Krishna agitates that. Mahavishnu agitates by three things. What is that? He pushes the jivas into matter with three things: Kriya, Kala and Swabhava. If you see the second canto, Kriya Shakti, Kala Shakti and the Swabhava of the jivas. And then when he pushes this to the subtle form of material energy, it is called as Mula Prakriti. And then he imposes three gunas. The three material modes are already there in an unmixed state, in a mixed state. Sorry, in a mixed state, and they are in a way in a sleeping state. There's a word in English, quintessential or something like that. So it is not active. In an inactive or an inactive state, it is lying there. And when the Lord agitates that, immediately the Mula Prakriti transforms into Pradhana. Pradhana means prominent. Means now this matter is there with the jivas, karma, kala and swabhava ready to be created. So then, after Pradhana comes what? Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva means the actual material ingredient from which all of these jivas... Mahat Tattva is almost like a clay. See, clay dough from which all of the living entities, everything is created. And this is not even the living entities. This is the raw material to create the jivas, senses, the mind, the intelligence, the matter like earth, water, ether, fire, and the sense devatas, and all of this raw material is created, including Brahmaji. After Brahma is created, then Brahma uses this raw materials and start manifesting the living entities. How many living types of species we have? 84 lakh. 8,400,000 species are created. But practically, the root of all of this is the three modes. So therefore, the three modes becomes very important for us to understand. Why? Because for us to get out of these three modes, we have to know how they function. And in this verse, Prakritehe natmano gunaha. The second line, Prakriti means of material nature, na atmana gunaha. See, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, these three, Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, Iti, Prakritehe, these three qualities, Iti, are of the Prakriti. Na atmano gunaha. They are not the gunas of the Atma. What does it mean? Atma also has gunas. Atma also has a quality, but not these three qualities. That is what we have to understand. That's what he's very clearly saying. Atma also has a guna. Because Krishna, here Atma means Krishna. Now, Atma has so many meanings again. Huh? Atma means the body on an external understanding. Atma means the mind. Atma means the intelligence. Atma means the soul. Actually, Atma means the Paramatma. Atma means the Supreme Lord. So Atma actually means the Supreme Lord. But because he is called Atma, everything else is called Atma. So here, na atmano gunaha. There is a nirvachana of Atma also, which actually says Atma means the Supreme Lord in Sanskritam, in a linguistic bhasha, from a bhasha perspective. So, na atmano gunaha means Krishna, although he is sakala guna sampanna, he has all transcendental auspicious qualities, but not of these three, because these three are prakritehe gunaha. These three qualities are of the prakriti. Prakriti again is the energy of the Lord, and this energy of the Lord uses these three modes to run herself, or prakriti. We will see in the later chapters of how prakriti means the spiritual or the energy of the Lord, which is adorned by Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi Devi in one sense manifests the whole material universe using these three modes. So here, natmano gunaha means these three modes are not the qualities of the spirit soul. They are the qualities of the material nature. So therefore it becomes very interesting. Now, interestingly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna dedicates an entire chapter to understand these three modes. Which chapter is that? Chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. And in that chapter, 14th chapter, 10th verse, Krishna says, Rajas tamas chabi bhuya sattvam bhavati sorry, not this one. 14.5. I think I have not copied the verse. In 14.5, Sattvam rajastama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. So how these three modes nibadnanti, they bind the jiva. So what does it mean? Even before we are created, we are bound by this. Why are we bound? It begins from the creation. The creation, when Mahatattva gets transformed, the first principle that gets created is called as ahankara. Because without ahankara, jiva cannot function in this material world. What does ahankara mean? False ego. But what is that? What does you mean by false ego? Yes, false identification that I am this body, because I cannot survive in this realm without thinking I am this body. I have to think I am this body. That's when I can enjoy the senses. Otherwise, I cannot enjoy these senses. For example, a hog. Imagine a hog realizes it's a spirit soul. Do you think it can practically live in that body of a hog and then lie down in the pool of stool and urine very happily? It can't. So therefore, it has to be covered by the avarnika shakti of the Lord, avarnikatmika shakti, that is the covering potency of the Lord, to say, okay, now you forget that you are a spirit soul and you enjoy the body of a pig. So therefore ahankara is very important. Ahamkara means I am the body. Aham is important. Ahamkara means I am the body. I am thinking I am the body. So our existence is that, remember we had discussed this. If you see a coconut, have you seen a coconut with the shell? And what happens if the coconut dries inside? When you shake it, what happens? You can see the dried coconut, right? And does the dried coconut inside stick to the shell or not? It doesn't. But when you rest the coconut, does it stick? Does it touch the shell of somewhere? It does, right? Where the coconut touches the shell, that is what is called as false ego. That's the glue, which glues the jiva to the body. Because jiva and body cannot be glued, not with Fevibond or Fevistick or glue stick or super glue. You can't stick them because they are two separate entities. Jiva cannot be glued to material body, you see. It cannot, because it's almost like this. Can you glue water to something? You can't. So in that way, spirit is something, it is sentient, and matter is insentient. How can you glue them both? Krishna creates a super glue called as false ego. With that false ego, then the jiva now thinks I am the body. So just as the shell inside rests on, the coconut inside rests on the shell, and where it is touching the shell, that is called as false ego. And all we have to do, our whole spiritual seeking, is to get out of this glue called ahankara. And that is the whole reason why we have a spiritual master. Because it is the spiritual master only who can pluck us from that false ego. Otherwise, it is not possible by our means. We are already, because whatever we do, we are doing it in the realm of the three modes. Our bhakti also is in the three modes. Chapter 3.29, I think. Kapila Muni's instructions to Devahuti, bhakti also is within the three modes. But we have to go beyond the three modes. So how do I then do bhakti and get out of the three modes? Although bhakti itself is beyond the three modes, but I do not have access to the unalloyed devotional service. What bhakti I am doing is tainted by the three modes. So how do I then transcend the three modes? That's the crux now. So therefore it becomes important to understand that false ego is what binds us. So therefore here he is saying, Sattvam rajas tamaiti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is very nice to notice Krishna addressing Arjuna with many superlatives or adjectives. Yeah, it may be interesting, you see. I'm calling Narsimha Prabhu as Narsimha Prabhu. And then after 1 hour, I'll call him, oh, father of Aryan, oh, son of such and such Krishnappa. Do you think we will address people like that? Oh, father of such and such a person. Oh, son of such and such a person. Oh, Narsimha Prabhu. Oh, grandson of... You won't address someone like that. But you see, repeatedly Krishna does this with Arjuna. Oh, Kaunteya. Oh, Partha. Oh, Mahabaho. Oh, Anagha. You see, so many adjectives. So it doesn't... Oh, Kaunteya means son of Kunti. Partha means son of Pritha. Yeah, but that is the literal meaning. But we have to understand why Krishna uses specific name at a specific junction in the Bhagavad Gita. Here, Krishna is addressing Arjuna as Mahabaho. There is a very important message why Krishna specifically addresses Arjuna as Mahabaho here. What is the verse? Sattvam rajas tamaiti gunah prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti. What does nibadnanti means? He's conditioned. Dehe dehinam avyayam. But you, Arjuna, bhakto si me sakha cheti. Because you are a devotee, you are Mahabaho. Mahabaho means these three gunas cannot bind you because you are a strong-armed person. Strong-armed means what? Why is that addressing him as a strong-armed here have a specific understanding? The understanding is because he is not weak. Why he is not weak? Because he is a devotee of Krishna. So therefore Mahabaho has an interesting connotation. Just like Kunti, therefore we also have to become Mahabaho. That is the understanding, because Bhagavad Gita was not just for Arjuna, it was for us. So what does it mean when he says Kaunteya? Oh, he is addressing Kunti's son. No, Kunti means one who adorns the nature of Kunti, one who adorns the characteristics of Kunti. Yesterday, Arjun Sakha Prabhu was explaining, probably there was no woman like Kunti in this entire universe, or there will never be one like that. Because imagine, she was the Rajamata. She had such glorious sons. In fact, in the Mahabharata, I'll just tell this episode, it's very interesting. When the Pandavas lose the gambling match, when they lose and they're walking to the forest, Kunti Devi, they go and pay obeisances. The Pandavas pay obeisances. Looking at her sons, Kunti Devi says, she actually quite heavy, in today's terminology, she gives a heavy lecture. She says, if I would have known that my sons are so weak-minded, I would have rejected them like rejected stool and urine from my body. Just as deham avyayam, she says. Avyaya means avashesha. Avashesha means like, we reject the stool and urine. I would have rejected you like that from my womb. Because you are so weak-willed. That's how she chastises her sons. And they are going to the forest. They've lost everything, and now the mother is on top of it giving heavy lecture now. And she says, if I would have known that you would ended up in the forest, you were born in, all of the Pandavas were born in the forest only. Because when they left the forest, Arjuna was 14 years old. Yudhishthira was 16 years old. They had spent 14 years of their life, Arjuna, Bhima and Yudhishthira, they had spent 14 years of their life in the forest. So she says, if your destiny was to go to forest, I would have never left the forest. I would have stayed there. But I thought you will protect your kingdom, you will take care of the family, you will take care of the kingdom. But looks like your destiny is written to be in the forest only. So you go to the forest now. Just go, get lost. So she's so strong, and then she goes to Draupadi. Typically what would happen in Indian or in today's context, the mother-in-law would chastise, because of you, daughter-in-law, this happened to my sons. You see, generally this is the tendency. But she tells to Draupadi, there is nothing I want to advise you, my dear daughter-in-law, because you are already intelligent enough. I am so happy that my sons are under your guidance. This is what she is telling to Draupadi, because of course Draupadi is the most learned in those times. Kunti Devi Draupadi, because Draupadi is Agni Janani, she is born out of fire. What does it mean? It means, literally it means from fire, but spiritually it means she is purified intelligence. So she is very intelligent. In fact, Dharmaraja himself used to go and take advice from Draupadi. Dharmata Rakshitaha. She advises Yudhishthira many times. So Kunti Devi glorifies Draupadi, but having said that, then Draupadi did not tell their husbands, okay, now mother-in-law has said, you come and serve me. No, she didn't do that. That means if somebody does that, that means she's of little intelligence. But Draupadi then pays her obeisances, and she says, please help me so that I can serve my husbands properly. And then they go to the forest. So Kunti Devi, Kaunteya means who appreciates and adorn the quality of Kunti, means to be bold, to face adversities in life. He is a Kaunteya, not just son of Kunti. So we also have to become Kaunteya. So like that, when Krishna is addressing Arjuna with so many adjectives, we have to understand the deeper spiritual connotations of these meanings. So Krishna is saying we are all bound by these material nature. But Why is it important for us to understand all of this? Because we have to understand why we are even discussing all of this is, we have to admit to the fact that as jivas, we are not independent. We are always bound in this material. How many times we have decided to do something and we end up doing entirely opposite? And then you will realize, oh my God, why did I even do that? Why did I even break the speed rule? You know that there is a 40k zone out there and you've just sped to 60 and then you realize you've got a ticket. So why did I even drive like that, you see? So what does it mean? There is something else that is controlling us, that is beyond our capacity to control. So the understanding here is, first of all, you have to know, as jiva, I am not independent. I am dependent on the Lord. Although I am, there are three truths. Jiva, Prakriti, and Ishvara. Ishvara also has a desire. Jiva also has a desire. Ishvara also does activities. Jiva also does activities. But what is the difference? Prakriti, let's take the example of Prakriti also. Does Prakriti have desire? No, Prakriti doesn't have desire. It doesn't desire. A rock does not desire, now I want to become water. No, it cannot have desires. But does it have activity? Does Prakriti have activity? It does. But so then what is the difference between these three, Ishvara, Prakriti and Jiva? The Lord, the living entity, and matter. What's the difference? Yes, Mataji? Okay, that's one way. So what does it actually mean? What does it actually mean when you say that? Prakriti also has Kriya, Jiva also has Kriya, Ishvara also has Kriya. They all move. If you throw a rock moves, right? What's the difference between these three? Prakriti does not have Swatantra Kriya. It is not independent. It moves when some sentient Jiva throws it or moves it. Living entity has Kriya, it can move, but it also is not Swatantra. We have to understand that. Because I am moving my hand, it doesn't mean I am moving the hand. That's the biggest illusion. Because I think I am moving it. Why do I think like that? Because I have Ichha Shakti. I can desire. Therefore, I think I am moving the hand. But actually, I am not independent. So, Kriya is not independent in any of the two except Ishvara. Ichha is there in Ishvara, Ichha is there in Jiva also. So, the only difference between Jiva and Ishvara is Jiva has desire, Jiva doesn't have independence. Ishvara has desire and Ishvara has independence. So therefore, we have desire only. We don't have the freedom to move. Although we are one of the doers, we are only the instruments in his desire. So therefore, these three modes are acting on us at all time, place, and circumstances. But now I'll ask you a question: are these three modes sentient or insentient? Can the three modes work on themselves? So these three modes are just material energies. These energies have to be controlled. So Krishna therefore says, Daivihi esha gunamami mai mama maya duratyaya maya metam tarantite mameva ye prapadyante maya me. So he is controlling these gunas. Krishna is the ultimate controller of these gunas. So therefore, because he is the controller, he does not come under the control of these three gunas. So that is very important. It is so significant for us to understand our position and Krishna's position. Because understanding Krishna's position itself is purifying for the jiva. Why? Because imagine I have been bound by a rope, right? Let's say I'm bound tightly by a rope. Now, if I know there is a person sitting next to me who is not bound by a rope, I can ask his help, is it not? So therefore, it is important for me to know that there is someone who is not bound by the rope. And it takes someone who is not bound by the rope to remove my ropes. Simple as that. So therefore, first of all, as a jiva, I have to know that I am bound. That's another thing. Because I am an illusion, I will never admit that I am bound. Because there was a devotee taking a train in Laverton a few years ago. And there was this person from, who support the dogs and animals, who protect the rights of animals. What is it called as? PETA. PETA or PETA, I don't know. How do you pronounce that? So this lady was behind the devotee to sign up a petition or give some donation early in the morning. And the devotee was in a rush to catch the train. And she just followed her till the platform. Excuse me, sir, please, if you don't mind, please, sir, your vote would count. It would save thousands of animals thousands of dogs from going to the slaughterhouse, this, from being put down, yeah, blah, blah, blah. The devotee was so annoyed, he turned to her and says, what did you have for breakfast? That was the question he asked. What did you have for breakfast? Finish. It was a shock for her. She didn't say anything. She just walked away from that platform. You know why. That's it. Did you all know why? Finish. He didn't have to say anything. He said, what did you have for breakfast? Finish. End of the story. So therefore, many times, it takes a slap for someone to realize, actually, she was trying to protect someone, but actually she's just finished something on the plate. You see? This is called selective compassion. So, many times illusion is so hard, the covering potency is so difficult that we will not realize our own position that we are bound in this material world. It's very difficult to realize. So the first thing for a jiva is to realize how adhama, how fallen, how bound I am. I am helpless. Ekaki amara nahi paya bala tumhara karuna sara. Narottam Das Thakur says, I cannot do anything on my own. It is all by your mercy only, Gurudeva. So, we have to come to realize that. Unless one comes, that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Trinadapi sunichena taror api sahishnuna. We have to come to the point of the Trinadapi. Only then mercy can flow. Releasing from the three modes, we cannot do it on our own. Actually, if you see many sections of the practices in the Vedas, even yoga Paddhati, there is a practice of pranayama. So, pranayama, if you see Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, in the end he started breathing, taking one breath every month. That is the whole goal of pranayama. If you come to pranayama, I remember in my yoga classes, that the idea is to stretch your breath. The longer you can stretch your breath, the longer your lifespan is. And the more you will be established in the sattvika prabhava or sattva guna. So my teacher used to tell me in my school, in the school usually generally students are in rajasic tendencies, they're passionate. So when she used to come, she used to say, take 3 deep breaths and the last third breath, hold it. Take your tummy in and hold it till I count 30. She used to do that. And we didn't know why she used to do that, but now I understand. Because she used to bring us to mode of goodness. Because when you deep breathe and when you hold your breath, your heartbeat slows down. And when your heartbeat slows down, you establish yourself in mode of goodness. But the catch is, you can't stay in that position for long. It would be temporary. So yoga paddhati can help us, but we cannot escape the modes. It will give us a glimpse of mode of goodness. Just as when you wake up in the morning, you will get a glimpse of mode of goodness. But again, mode of passion drive. So therefore, everything, the time, the music, the thoughts, the time of the day, the food we eat, the people we speak, the people we associate, the thoughts we get, the music we hear, the talk we speak, everything is tainted with these 3 modes. Everything, practically everything. We cannot be free from the 3 modes at any point in time. So how then can we actually please Krishna? So, therefore it is very important to understand our position and understand who is beyond the 3 modes, which is Krishna. Therefore, then we can approach Krishna. How do we approach Krishna? How do we approach Krishna? By bhakti. So that is the whole point of Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. So Prayojana is him, Sambandha is relationship, and Abhideya is the process of bhakti. So therefore, Krishna tells in the 14th, same chapter only, he says the 10th verse, which is what? Mamchayo abhyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate brahmabhuyaya. So when somebody comes to the platform of avyabhicharena bhakti, what is avyabhicharena bhakti? Unalloyed devotional service. Even alloyed devotional service, he's not saying alloyed. Avyabhicharena bhakti means you have to come to the platform of unalloyed devotional service. Madgati shruti matrena mai sarvam guhashaya. Kapila Muni says this in the 29th chapter of what is the definition of unalloyed bhakti. When somebody comes to that position, then you can actually get out of this material world. Mai sarva guhashaya manogatir avichinna yatha ganghambasom budhav. Our thought, word and deed should flow towards Krishna uninterrupted. unalloyed by anything material, then naturally Krishna will release us from the three modes of material nature. Until then, we are always bound, either in our thoughts, either in our deeds, or either in our words, thought, words and deeds. So otherwise we are never free. So therefore this verse, and there's another, the last line, Harasa Ullasa Evava. In this material world, the jiva is always controlled by one mode or the other. The morning times, mode of goodness prevails. Sun rises, mode of passion prevails. Midnight or night, as the night reveals itself, mode of ignorance. So what does it mean? It means in Sattva Guna, there is focus. You see, the morning sun rays and the evening sun rays are the best. That's why we do Sandhya Vandan during those times. The rays are focused. But as soon as light comes and it spreads out, it's not focused. So therefore, Rajoguna prevails after the sun rises. And then when the sun is setting, at that time it's focused. That's why we do Sandhya Kalam is very, very powerful. And then once the sun sets, tamas. So therefore, Sattva gives focus, Rajas gives confusion, and Tamas gives indolence. So therefore, Sattva means focus. So for us to be focused, we have to have certain activities to be done in the time of, so therefore time is very important. But these three modes always compete between each other. Hrasa means going down, Ullasa means to go up. So the modes are competing between each other. Competing based on my desires only, my karma and my desires and my swabhava only. It's not automatically competing. Just like if I wake up in the morning and try to desire to have coffee, that's mode of passion. So I've woken up, the time is nice, but my desire is to get into mode of passion. My desire is to get into mode of ignorance. So my desires also play a very important role. But how are these three modes overruled? By association. That's why when you come to the temple, when you do the morning Mangalarti program, naturally we establish ourselves in the mode of goodness. We cannot do it on our own. We have to do it in the association of the exalted personalities, in the association of the glorious deities, and the environment also. All of that matters. So therefore, the competition between the modes, the material modes can never bind Krishna. I'll just summarize. It can never bind Krishna because Krishna is beyond the three modes. But jivas are always under the influence of the three modes, and it takes them to do bhakti, avyabhicharena bhakti. Avyabhichar bhakti means that which is not polluted bhakti towards Krishna. Only then Krishna can release us from the three modes. Releasing also is done by Krishna only. We cannot release ourselves because we are bound. We are bound. Everything is bound by the three modes. Everything we do is bound. So therefore it takes only Krishna or a representative of Krishna who can free us from the three modes of material nature. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments, or realizations or corrections? Yes, Sevya.
Thank you for the nice class. You said that we have to be beyond the three modes to perform bhakti. But we
when we are excited. I couldn't hear partially your question. So when you're excited to do something, or
so how can we be in the mode of goodness when we're in anxiety or
when you're in anxiety? Okay. Or something for Krishna, or this is just good. So that's a wonderful question. Actually, what does anxiety give us? What is the side effect of anxiety? Stress. And because of stress, we fear. We fear. Naturally, fear is. The same question was asked by Devahuti Mata, Mother Devahuti, to Kapila Muni in the 25th chapter of the 3rd canto. although we do bhakti, fear comes, right? Fear comes. Then Kapila Muni instructs Devahuti to do tivrena. You have to increase your bhakti. When you ardently practice abhyasa, when the abhyasa of bhakti becomes ardent, naturally anxiety will wane away. The anxiety, the stresses of the material world will wane away. But if you are taking anxiety to serve Krishna, that is tivra bhakti only. That is considered as an activity of bhakti. As long as, Kapila Muni immediately warns, as long as we do not do offenses. So that is why when we go or quickly jump into bhakti in passion, there is a very good chance of offense. So we have to be very careful that our one is material anxiety or one is anxiety for Krishna. Anxiety for Krishna is good, but we have to make sure that anxiety for Krishna is good to serve Krishna only, but not quickly find faults or offend others. So we have to be it's a very thin, fine line to come to that point. But as practitioners, we will always make mistakes. Therefore, it is very important for us to practice bhakti under the guidance of someone who is in mode of goodness. Does it make sense? Who is always in the mode of goodness, who is superior to us in our practice of bhakti. Always be under the watchful eyes of someone who is under the mode of goodness, who can tell us, hey, Haribol, don't do that. Very important. Just now when I said that, Gokul turned to me. He said, so we need someone who can always wake us up, because very quickly there is a tendency that I can go into the modes, under the modes, like covering a blanket. And I might think I'm doing very nice bhakti, but I'll be just pushing everyone and doing bhakti like that. So that is also not suggested. So bhakti is like with everyone, not like this. My Shiksha Guru, His Grace Nanda Baba Prabhu used to teach me. I've been taught all of this by him actually. So he used to tell me, so when we do bhakti, we have to be very careful not to, sometimes you see even Kirtan can go into mode of passion. Hare Krishna, you go too fast. So Kirtan can also be in mode of goodness, mode of passion. So but at all times we have to be careful that this is only for your pleasure, Krishna. Only for your pleasure. Very difficult. That's why modes are very difficult. Very difficult. So we have to be always focused that this is only for the pleasure of Krishna. The moment I do kirtan for pleasing someone else, sometimes we do that. Very quickly we try to please someone else or pleasing me, myself, see how nicely I'm playing. It's already tainted. So therefore I'll not be able to suprasidati. I'll not be able to taste the bliss of Krishna consciousness. When you see the Harinam Ruchi boys, you will see. They're so focused when they are doing kirtan in the Harinam. You're very focused. You will not see them very agitated in the kirtans at any point. They will do fast kirtan, but very focused. I don't know, this is just my observation, I might be wrong. So therefore, when we are doing tivra bhakti, there are high chances that in that anxiety, I might commit offenses. So we have to be very careful, because bhakti is done with devotees. So when I'm in the arena of devotees, when we are doing tivra bhakti, you have to be very careful that we don't... It's almost like there are 10 people on the railway line, and I've actually done a lot of bhakti, and I've seen बहुत लोगों को नीचे गिरा दिया train से. So we have to be careful that we have to be grounded at all times. So anxiety, we have to buy anxiety, but when I buy anxiety, the anxiety should be inside, and that anxiety should only take me closer to Krishna, to only give me better mode of goodness. Because the more I become desirous of Krishna, the more faults I will see about myself. To say, oh my God, Krishna, you're so merciful that you have given me this opportunity. So thank you. And you'll become even more, your expression of gratitude will increase at all times. So that anxiety is actually purifying you. If that is the case, then it is good to buy that anxiety. But if that anxiety is disturbing us, so it's better to go a little slower. So as I said, there should be someone to guide. If there's someone to guide, then that's good. Thank you for your nice questions. Your questions are related to the topic, and your questions, Bhavadbhir Yat Krishna Samprashno, Bhavadbhir Loka Mangalam. Very nice art you have learned to ask good questions. Thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, we'll stop here. Grantraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.